How's it going, guys? My name is Elijah Collins, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make your own SpecialFX makeup look. Halloween is right around the corner, and if you don't have any costume ideas yet, I'm going to give you one that's cost-friendly, and it's going to be very quick for you to do. So stay tuned, and I'll show you how to make your own wound. Hey guys, so right here I have all of the tools that we're going to be using today. For the base of the actual flesh material, we're going to be using unbleached enriched flour. You can use any type of flour. This is just the type that I prefer to use. And then a liquid latex base. You can get the big jugs at your local Walmart or Spirit Halloween if they have those in your area. Or you can get the little tinier ones if you're not looking to do something major or you don't use a lot of liquid latex. Alright, so to start off, we're going to use about a little less than a quarter cup of flour. You can put that in a mixing bowl, and then you're going to want to add equal parts of your liquid latex. Just that way you can balance it out. You're going to want to form and mix this together until you get kind of like a thickish paste. Alright, so now we're going to add in our liquid latex. And like I said, just enough so that way we can balance it out and make that nice thick paste. Right, so by the time that your mixture starts to look like this, it's a bit thick. You can still see some clumps, but that's fine. It's going to dry out in the end. You want it to look exactly like this before you apply it to the skin. Alright, so now that we got our paste, we're going to take the same spoon that we used to mix it, grab a good glob on the back of your spoon, and then apply it to the area that you want your wound to be. So like I said, I'm going to do it right on my hand. I'm going to apply that just nice and smoothly, and about the shape that I want the wound to be. Make sure you blend your edges together so that way it's nice and flush with the actual skin. Just that way it looks more realistic and less like something that you've attached to your hand. So it's about the size that I want. I'm just going to keep blending out the edges. And then you can kind of stack the center of your paste right in the middle of the wound. So that's going to be kind of the area that we open up, where you can see more of the gory aspect of it. Alright, I'm going to finish blending that off camera, and then we'll get back on to how we're going to actually make the wound. So I just want to show you guys what this looks like when it's actually all blended out. As you can see, the edges are very blended into my natural skin, just that it looks more realistic. And then you can see right in the center of the wound is where the majority of your paste is going to be, because that's the area that we're going to be opening up, so you can add in more fine details to make it look more realistic. Now, liquid latex does take about 10 to 15 minutes to dry thoroughly, and you want to make sure that it is dried completely through, just that way you're not dealing with any wet product when you're actually going in with your details. Alright, so while that's drying, I want to go over some of the products that we're going to be using today to really make those fine details pop. Alright, so first we have our basic cosmetics products. I have a foundation that matches my own skin tone, just because that's going to be what makes your liquid latex paste more realistic and it will blend more seamlessly into your skin. Then you want to have a beauty blender sponge or a foundation brush that's going to help you blend that product right into the skin. And lastly, you want to have some sort of setting powder that's going to reduce the shine of the natural liquid latex, just because when it does dry down, it is a bit shiny. Next, you want to make sure that you have application tools. I bought this kit from Spirit for about $8, and it comes with a palette for you to mix different paints together on, a couple stippling sponges, a couple soft beauty sponges, and also an application knife. And lastly, we want to use some colors in this so that we make it look more realistic. I use a water-based paint palette. It has all the colors that you need, as well as the ones that you can use to mix to make actual colors that aren't on the palette. And then we have some Spirit blood products. I prefer to use the Bloody Scab and the blood gel, just because they have a thicker consistency that looks more realistic in comparison to fake bloods and things of that nature. Alright, so here you can kind of see what the liquid latex begins to look like when it starts to dry down. It gets more of a yellowy color in comparison to the white that we first started out with. Alright, so once your liquid latex is actually dried down, you're going to take any type of cosmetic scissors or anything that's sharp enough to cut through your liquid latex. In a very careful manner, you want to cut the shape that you want your wound to be in. I'm going to do that off camera, just that way I can do it safely and then show you what it will look like in the end. So this is what your wound is going to look like once you cut through the middle layer of it. I was very precise in where I wanted the wound to be, just so that way it has that realistic and gory effect that's going to be added once we add our colors in there. But this is what it's going to look like before we add our base products. As previously mentioned, once the liquid latex dries down, it does have a bit of shine to it, which is going to deteriorate the realistic effect that we're trying to achieve. So to combat that, we're going to use a little bit of facial powder and our beauty blender sponge to get rid of that shine, make it look more realistic. Now that our wound is nice and clean, we got it looking more natural, we're going to add some color to it that matches my own skin tone using the foundation that I mentioned before in our beauty blender sponge. So this is what your wound is going to look like after you've applied your foundation to it. As you can see, we've reduced that yellow tone and made it look more like my own skin. Next, we're going to add our colors and blood. Now, there isn't any proper way to actually paint the wound itself. I typically like to add darker shades in the center of the wound where the blood is primarily going to be concentrated. So I'll start off with the black shade and then put that right in the center. Just to kind of darken that up, just that way when we add the reds, it'll be a darker red in comparison to the surrounding reds that are a bit more light, more like the shade of blood. So that'll deepen it up. So as you can see, we've added that dark black shade right in the center of the wound. Like I said before, it'll add a lot more of a deeper effect to the wound. Once we go and add those reds in, it'll pop a lot more. Alright, so now I have our red shade right on this paintbrush right here. We're gonna go right over the black so we can add our reds in. And like I said before, it's gonna be a lot deeper of a tone since we added that black beforehand. You can kind of go sloppily so you get a little bit of the red on the edges of the wound. That'll add more of like a dry blood effect. And then we're gonna do that once more, right over the edges, and continue to add that red in until you get like a burgundy-esque maroon type shade, as you can see right there. All right, giving you a more close-up look at what we've done now. We've added the black and then the red on top. Like I said, you can kind of see that darker area in the middle of the wound. That's the effect that the black has. Once you add the red on top, it all comes together really well. Next, we're gonna add more red, except instead of using the paintbrush, we're gonna use one of the stippling sponges, and that's gonna create more like a splattered blood effect that we can do on the sides of the wound. All right, so I already have some red paint right on the stippling sponge. We're just gonna go right over the edges, like I said, to give you more of like a splattered blood effect. You can do that once again very sloppily, right over the wound. That's gonna make it look more bloody. Just tap it along the edges. And then you can go along the outside of the wound to add more of like an irritated skin effect. Just tapping very lightly along the edges with the red paint. Add a little bit more. And I'm going to focus more now along the outside portions, just so that way you get like a more irritated skin look, as I said before. Alright, there you go. Alright, so now we can start to see the effect that that red stippling has. It makes the skin look a lot more irritated on the sides, and then you can kind of see the splattered blood right in the center of the wound as well. I'm going to add a little bit more to this left side of the wound just to make it more flush with the right side. And then we're going to go in with some blood, add a lot more detail. Alright, so for the next step, we're going to get our blood out. I like to start with the blood scab. Like I said before, that's got a very thick consistency to it, so it's going to look more like a bloody gel that's going to go right in the center. So I recommend putting this right on your little applicator knife. It's going to come out just like that. It's very thick, and then you're gonna slide that right in the center of the wound, really making sure to pack it in deep, just so that you can kind of get the effect of like a very deep gash in the center of the wound. Sweep a little bit of that off. And like I said, there's no need to be super neat with it. It is a blood wound, so it's going to be a little bit messy. So once you get that, you can once again add that right to the edges. It has a very dark pigment to it, so it looks like really realistic. So like I said, just be kind of messy with it. And that's what it'll look like after you add your blood gel. Next, we're gonna add some blood scab. That's gonna add more of a shiny effect, like it's kind of a fresh wound to it. For that, we're gonna use one of these little stippling brushes as well, little sponges. That's literally all you need, not a lot at all. And then you're just gonna go right over the top of the wound to make it look more wet. Add a little bit more. Go right over the top. Then you can splatter that all over the edges as well. And that should be what it looks like after you're done with that. Alright, so this is bringing you in for a closer look at what we just did. We added the bloody scab right in the center of the wound to give it more of a deepening effect, and then that blood gel right on the sides to make it look more wet and realistic, like it's just now bleeding. And that's about it. That's how we're gonna create our own special effects wounds. This took me about 30 minutes to do, so this would be perfect for you guys to do. Like I said, all the products are going to be listed in the description box below. They're all relatively cost-friendly. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Alrighty guys, so this is our DIY special effects makeup look, all complete. Hopefully you use this during your own Halloween costume making process. I hope you guys enjoy this, and if you want to check out any of my other special effects makeup looks, you can check that out on Instagram at ElijahCollins.mua. I'll leave that down below as well. Have a great day, guys.